So the question from Lewis is, how do we use quite? Quite is an adverb of degree, and it falls in the group that we have other adverbs in, like very, pretty, rather, fairly, and a little. Now, quite is possibly the most complicated one of these adverbs of degree, so we will end with quite, but let's start with the other ones. So let me share my next slide with you, and here it is, I hope. Yeah, there it is. So adverbs of degree come mainly before adjectives. So here I have grouped them into three groups: very, pretty and rather, and fairly and a little. And as you can see, they just decrease in degree. Very is to a great degree, pretty and rather are to a moderate degree, and fairly and little are to a small degree. Now, what's the difference between, for example, pretty and rather and fairly and a little? We go back to very, to a great degree. You can use very for both positive and negative ideas. Whereas for the other groups, usually, this is just usage guide, pretty is used with positive ideas and rather used with negative ideas. And for the small degree adverbs, fairly is used with positive ideas and a little with negative ideas. So let's look at some examples. So for example, with very, a great deal or great degree, you can have a positive adjective like satisfied or a negative one, disappointed. You can say I'm very satisfied or I'm very disappointed. Now, if we bring the degree down with pretty and rather, use pretty for the positive one. I'm pretty, to a moderate extent, I'm pretty satisfied. But if it's negative, best use rather. I'm rather disappointed. And then further down with the positive adjective, I'm fairly satisfied, not a lot, but I'm fairly satisfied, or I'm a little disappointed. Right? So this clarifies the degree that these define. Now, before we move on to quite, which was Lewis's question, I'd like to say one thing about rather that you need to bear in mind. Sometimes you may hear rather used with a positive idea. And if you hear that or use that, it means that you are surprised. For example, if you say, that meal was rather nice, I didn't expect that. There is an element of surprise. You expected an average meal or a bad meal, and then you got a really good one, a nice one. So that's really the only case where rather is used with a positive idea. And also note that if you have a noun in your sentence after the adjective, the indefinite article can be in two positions with rather. You may hear, or you can say, that was a rather nice meal, so before rather, or that was rather a nice meal, so a after rather. So that finishes the first ones off and brings us to quite. A bit more complicated. So here we go, Lewis, your question. Now, quite can be used with both positive and negative ideas. But where it can get a bit tricky is that it has different meanings. When you use quite with gradable adjectives, it means to a moderate degree. So not very, not a little, in the middle. So in that sense, it's similar to pretty and rather. So if you say, I'm quite satisfied, it's like I'm moderately satisfied, or you can also say, I'm pretty satisfied. You can also use it with a negative idea, saying, I'm quite disappointed, and then it would be a synonym for rather. I'm rather disappointed. One little note here is that the word pretty is an informal word, so avoid using it in formal situations or formal writing particularly, right? So now there is a bit more to say. So with non-gradable adjectives, and these are adjectives that you can't have grade them. Like if you say fantastic, now something is fantastic, it can't be a little fantastic or very fantastic, okay? These are called non-gradable adjectives. When you use quite with these adjectives, it just is a synonym for completely or absolutely. So if you say I'm quite exhausted, that means that you are completely exhausted. Or if you say that was quite an amazing meal, it means that was absolutely an amazing meal. But okay, a note here, we saw where the article went with rather. It could be before or after rather. With quite, it's always after. So notice the last sentence, that was quite an amazing meal. Right, what else have I got here? Right, we have been speaking about adjectives, all these adverbs of degree going before adjectives, just to point out that they can equally go before adverbs. For example, you can say, but with the same ideas. The project is progressing very slowly, negative, or very well, positive. And the project is progressing pretty or quite well, positive. The project is progressing rather quite slowly, negative. The project is progressing fairly well, not a lot, but fairly well, or the project is progressing a little slowly, right? So exactly the same ideas, but now here we have adverbs instead of adjectives. And to finish, I would like to mention 3 other things that quite can be used with, and other than adverbs and adjectives. It can be used with opinion verbs, like agree, for example. You can say, I quite agree. And all it means is I completely agree. I fully agree. You can use quite before a few and a lot. For example, she's written quite a few blogs. Now, when you add quite to a few, it makes it very similar to many. Remember, a few means some, and if you add quite a few, you take it up, and it reaches almost many, right? And finally, you may see or hear quite used directly with a noun, like she enjoyed quite a success. In that case, it's just a synonym for big, like she enjoyed a big success. Right, that's the end of the lesson, a short one, just to clarify these adverbs of degree for you. I hope it's going to help you to use these more correctly and also to understand the idea behind them when you hear them used by others.